Dr. Scott Sears from St. Vincent Healthcare joins us here on Montana Talks. And Dr. Sears, good to see you. You had a great show with Tammy Hall, who filled in for us the last Tuesday, a couple weeks ago. So,
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to be with her and her husband here in the studio. We had a great show, stayed on a little bit longer than usual, took some extra calls. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I know you talked a lot about the top health stories of 2019. Heading into 2020, what do you see as what's going to be, I guess, what are you looking at when it comes to healthcare or medical topics in 2020?
Yeah, great question. I think you talked about it a little bit on the show yesterday, I believe, but cancer deaths continue to go down. That's a big story going into 2020. How do we continue that trend? There's been a kind of a plateau in some of our cancers, such as breast and colon cancer. It's gone down dramatically over the last 15 years, but over the last few years, it's kind of plateaued. So how do we get better with that? Most of the benefits coming from lung cancer, melanoma. So how do we continue to drive down cancer death? How do we get better treatments that have fewer side effects? What kind of role can people play in their own life and kind of take ownership of their own health? That's been a big theme of our show, which is people have a lot more control over their health than they realize, and what are those big areas that they can focus on. And as always, as people become interested in questions about their own health, they ask questions, which we hope they call in and ask on this show.
Kay in Kalispell here to kick it off for us. Kay, did you have a question or comment for Dr. Scott Sears?
Yes, I would like to hear his thoughts about eating whole food, plant-based, and organic and non-GMO.
Oh, interesting. All right. Yeah, Dr. Sears, you have a take on that? Because, when we talk about the lower cancer death rates, things like that, that's been attributed to people smoking less. But I know, as we've talked before, your diet and what you eat and obesity is a big challenge when it comes to the cancer rates that are out there. So, your take on organic versus non-organic, you name it.
Yeah, I think this is a great question because so many people, particularly at the start of January, are so interested in dietary modification. And some people call it, I'm going to go on a diet. Some people say, I'm just going to change my eating habits. Whatever it is, this is a hot topic on people's mind. Like, what is the best plan to follow in my eating habits? And so when people say whole foods, I think a lot of people don't understand what that means. What whole foods really are referred to in studies are foods that are minimally processed. So in other words, they're natural foods that come from the environment, either growing off of bushes. Fruits and vegetables are very common in whole foods, nuts, plant-based products, because those foods come from plants and get minimal processing. So when people talk about whole foods, what they're really talking about is just a diet that's natural off the land.
So like a chicken breast instead of sliced chicken lunch meat or sliced turkey.
Yeah, exactly. Or processed further, adding breading to it and then deep frying it. Anything that you do to the food to process it makes it less whole because you've modified it. And so a lot of people are firm believers in whole foods because a lot of the processing that occurs, especially in American diets, is to add fats and sugars to add taste. And we know that fats and sugars and other processing, creates problems with some of the foods and create their own health outcomes down the road. So it probably is a reasonable philosophy that I'm going to eat whole natural foods. Does it mean that you have to be fanatical about it? As we've talked about on this show a lot, my firm belief is people would do more for themselves if they would eat 6 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, which are whole foods, and at least 64 ounces of water every day, which technically is a whole food. And hopefully it's been modified or processed a little bit so you don't get giardia and cholera and all this other stuff from it.
So the message is probably, don't let perfection be the enemy of progress.
Exactly.
Like, hey, eat more fruits and whole fruits and whole vegetables, not fruit juice, because that's basically just sugar. Eat the whole fruit. Integrate that more into your diet versus like, okay, if it's organic or if it's not organic, that's kind of a personal preference thing. The point is just eat some more fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, absolutely. Eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Eat a lot of natural foods. They're good. Try not to be overboard because it's very hard to maintain overboard. I would much rather have people say, hey, I'm only going to eat out once a week, or I'm going to completely give up fast food. I'm going to incorporate fruits and vegetables. Those are the important things. It is interesting tying it back to kind of the collagen question you asked earlier, right? Which is a lot of people think that, well, whole foods, plant-based, all those products are good for me. And that's true. There are some things that come from other foods that are valuable, right? Like, so to completely give up meat, we know that people are strictly vegan. They give up a lot of proteins, and you can get some protein from plant-based products, but incorporating a little bit of natural protein with meat is really important. When people eat a high protein diet that comes from meat, like we see in America a lot, they actually have a deficiency sometimes in collagen. And so this question comes up. If you walk through Sam's Club or Costco, you'll see all these collagen powders. You'll frequently see it in the cosmetic section of stores advertising that collagen is good for your skin because collagen is what gets rid of wrinkles. If you have collagen protein, it's 70% of the protein in your skin is collagen. A third of the protein in your body is collagen. Collagen is incredibly important in the skin because it gives it elasticity. So when you're 60, 70 years old and you're just banging the back of your hand on a table and you're bruising all over, I had 3 patients yesterday ask me this. I have bruises all over the back of my hand. If you pinch your skin up and hold it up and then let go of it, if you have a lot of elasticity and appropriate amounts of hydration or water in your skin, it'll snap right back into place. If you do that with an 80-year-old and you pinch that skin up and you let go of it, it stays up because they lose the collagen and elasticity and some of the fat underneath it that keeps our skin healthy, and that's why we wrinkle as we get older. So what do marketers do? They say, hey, you need collagen, so we're going to put it in all these beauty products and have you rub it on your face.
Buy this powder, buy this cream or whatever.
Absolutely, and it makes sense if you know that collagen's in skin. However, what they don't say is that collagen isn't absorbed through the skin because it's too big of a molecule.
We were talking about collagen. That's kind of one of the big buzzwords out there in skincare and fashion right now. I know a lot of the ladies in particular are, hey, how do I keep my skin looking fresh and young and vibrant? And I guess elasticity was the word we were talking about before the break. And so you're hearing a lot about these collagen powders and things like that. But to summarize from before the break, it sounds like what you're saying is, okay, you can throw collagen on in a powder, but it's not going to absorb in your skin. It's actually better to ingest something like collagen. And so you were telling me even something like Jell-O would be a way to get that collagen into your system. Yeah,
the manufacturers of Jell-O, which is a brand name, would be very proud of you for sponsoring their product. But you can get any generic gelatin, right? Gelatin is the main component in Jell-Os. Although Jell-O as a brand also makes pudding and other products. But gelatin actually contains several of the amino acids that we call essential amino acids, which means your body can't make it. So it's essential that you consume it. And what most people don't realize is collagen, like I said before the break, it can't get absorbed through the skin. The molecules are too big. So just putting it on your skin doesn't incorporate it into your skin and allows your skin to use it. The best way to get it in is to ingest it, have it get into your bloodstream and have the blood deliver it to the skin, and then the skin can use it to make collagen and to have elasticity in it. And interestingly, gelatin is one of those products that does that. It has several of these amino acids. And most people think of Jell-O as a very unhealthy food. But the truth of it is gelatin, which can be purchased in sugar-free formats, has a lot of these really important amino acids that aren't found in meat. They're protein that doesn't come from meat. And so if you just eat meat, you don't get the collagen, elasticity types of proteins that you can get. Where it really comes from is bone and cartilage. I don't know if you've ever seen that series on TV where it says how it's made. Like, it's cool. You see how they make pencils, how they make paper, a lot of stuff that you see in everyday life. I wish they would do one on how they make gelatin. Many people wouldn't eat it if they knew where it came from. It's kind of like how you make a hot dog.
Sausage is made. Yeah.
What you do is you take bones, muscles, and skin, and you grind it up together, and then you make gelatin out of that. And as everybody knows, gelatin is sticky, right? It's elastic. I challenge anybody in the world to make a wrinkled Jell-O. Right? It's smooth. It's like, hey, that's kind of how I want my skin to look like. And that's kind of how you need to think about it. Gelatin has some really interesting health benefits besides just elasticity. Helps digestion because it can actually stick to water. One of the few things that actually can accumulate water and stick to it, and allows better passages of stool.
So is that why, like, for example, when I make a roast or something like that, like a good pot roast, it'll look like there's that little Jell-O, almost a gelatin type
Absolutely,
deal
because it had the bone in it.
Interesting. So like a good beef broth, a chicken broth, a broth is also a way to get that collagen into your system. So.
Yeah, really important. If you're going to use broth to get these amino acids, you need to have some sort of bone in it. So bone broth. So a lot of the meats that have bone in them that you then make a broth out of have gelatin, and they're actually very good for you. So you can get gelatin from Jell-O, preferably sugar-free so you don't get diabetes, and from bone broth, or you can get supplements, of gelatin and mix it with things.
So that old, leave the ham bone, after you have the Thanksgiving or the Christmas ham, and then you use that to make your split pea soup, and then
really
that's how you
good
get
for
to
you. Really good for you, and better than probably spending a lot of money. A lot cheaper to go buy a ham bone than it is to buy a bunch of expensive products to rub on your skin that you can't absorb.
That's right. Now you said something else. You said so even Jell-O has like these essential amino acids. So I know we've talked about this before because everybody's doing their supplements, and now I'm on my gym kick where I love to take my pre-workout before I go to the gym. I like to take a BCAA after the workout, the branch chain amino acids, basically like a protein drink, but it goes straight into your system instead of having to be processed.
Absolutely.
Right? But the BCAA is different from the essential amino acids that you just talked about that puts the collagen in the system, or
so they're very related. So there's 20 amino acids out there. Those amino acids are the building blocks that you use to make proteins in your body. Some of them your body can make, some of them your body can't. The ones you can't, we call essential amino acids. People give them all sorts of names. Again, it's kind of moderation, right? You and I have talked about this. You don't want to go overboard, and if you dump tons and tons of amino acids, branch chain or otherwise, into your body, your kidney is going to have to filter out everything you don't use, and proteins are sticky, and you can cause some problems in your kidneys when you overuse protein. So using a reasonable amount before or after a workout, or supplementing your diet with a scoop of protein powder in your smoothie in the morning is totally appropriate. Going overboard and say because some is good, more is better, actually can create some problems in your body. And it goes back to the first caller, whole foods, right? The more you process stuff, the more you try and add to what goes on naturally, the more risk you have of introducing problems that you're just not aware of.
Well, and it all comes down to hydration too, and so especially as folks age, it's even more important to drink water. It sounds like too, and to keep. I mean, is that why people who drink maybe excessively or who smoke cigarettes, why their skin always looks a little rougher? Is because both of those things also dehydrate them?
Yeah, I mean, hydration is super valuable. Again, you're going to get sick of me going back to the same thing, right? Fruits and vegetables and hydration. And now what I'm going to tell people is just make a nice sugar-free gelatin. Throw in all the fruit and vegetables that you can. That's how my grandma used to make it. All the leftover fruits and veggies, throw it in a Jell-O and serve it for your meal. There's actually some sense to that, and down it with a big glass of water.
The folks in Central Asia, I tell you, it'll disgust you when you see this, but they actually put meat inside of Jell-O, and it'll just be there shaking right in front of you, and you're like, I'm supposed to eat that? Oh, man. And then it's horse meat. Oh, no, I can't do it. But, yeah, you talk about, there was another study also that just came out of this new report, finds that the number of Americans drinking themselves to death has more than doubled. So that's a new report that came out recently. We can talk about that, but I know you covered a similar story a couple weeks ago. But yeah, what do you think this attributed to? Are people just binge drinking too much more recently, or what?
So here's the study that came out. Is they basically looked at death certificates in the United States specifically. So this is specific to the United States. And they looked at death certificates and they tried to see what percent of deaths are directly attributable to alcohol. This doesn't include what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, which was the indirect effects of alcohol on increasing your risk of breast cancer, that a bottle of wine is equivalent to 10 cigarettes in a woman, and all of that. This is actually the alcohol directly contributes to death. And what they saw is, yes, the risk doubled, but in women in particular, it increased 85%. In men, it went up about 30%. And what we're seeing around the country is that women are drinking more and more heavily than they ever have in the past. It's not to say that they're at higher that they're drinking more than men. Men still drink more, and men still have more deaths related to alcohol than women. So this isn't about like women are surpassing them.
Among women, yeah.
The rate of death related to alcohol in women is skyrocketing, and it's because women are drinking now equivalent amounts of men. And when you look at high school age, one of the biggest successes we've had is that underage drinking has gone down dramatically over the last 10 years in the country. However, now the rate of a high school girl and a high school boy drinking is the same. And that's a concern. So amongst women, alcohol consumption is increasing and the deaths related to it is skyrocketing. Still doesn't reach that of men. Men still drink more and it's bad for them. And people know that I talk about this all the time on this show. But having people aware of that is really valuable in kind of bending what we call the mortality curve.
Just a quick few minutes left here with Dr. Scott Sears from St. Vincent Healthcare. Two things I wanted to get to. Definitely want to have you talk about how important it is to donate blood. It's Blood Donor Awareness Month. Also, we got an email from the Disney family in Libby sharing something about cryotherapy and vets and how vets treat animals with cryotherapy. And they had a question, could you use cryotherapy, basically freeze off the cancer cells? Did I sum up their question
Absolutely.
right?
And it's a great question, and the simple answer is yes. And if you've ever gone to a dermatologist or your primary care physician and had a skin lesion that's a pre-cancer or even a certain kind of cancer, not melanoma, but the other kinds of skin cancers, we pull out a bottle of liquid nitrogen and we zap it or freeze it. We call it burning. A lot of times people say, I went to the doctor and I got my wart burned off, or I got my pre-skin cancer burned off. It's not really burning. We're deep freezing it with liquid nitrogen, and that is a form of what we call cryotherapy. Cryo means cold, therapy means treatment. There are some studies going on looking at using cryotherapy for cancer treatments, particularly in those cancers that are localized to one organ, so kidney cancer, liver cancer. And if you could isolate those cells and deliver cryotherapy, you kill those cells and they're less likely then to spread, because it's contained. Right now, if you
kill it by freezing instead of killing it through
radiation,
right?
Like right now, people know in breast cancer, we radiate breast cancer to death, but they are doing some studies to see can cryotherapy effectively kill those cells and cause less damage to the surrounding cells, which then predispose people to other types of cancer.
All right. A couple minutes left here with Dr. Scott Sears, Blood Donor Awareness Month. I know this is something you definitely want to recognize. And let me also give a quick shout out to SCL Health Medical Group, of which St. Vincent Healthcare is a part of, recognized by the American Society for Gastrointestinal Endoscopy for quality and safety. So if you mentioned earlier, if they're
huge deal. If you're going to go have someone stick a scope in your mouth or your bottom, you want it to be in a center of excellence. And St. Vincent at SCL Health achieved that this year. Huge kudos to that group. They worked really hard to get it.
And congrats to your team for that. 30 seconds to go. How important is it that folks donate blood?
Really important. January, winter months, a lot of car accidents, a lot of trauma. Blood takes 2.5 days to get ready to donate to someone. We always need about 4 days on the shelf for folks. We need tons of people donating blood. If you're healthy and able, find an opportunity to donate blood. It makes a huge difference. Blood Donor Awareness Month this month.
All right. Dr. Scott Sears, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for dropping into the studios here yet again. Dr. Scott Sears, St. Vincent Healthcare.